We back again, ladies and gentlemen. Master Bass in the Chizim, baby.
That's right. It's your boy Steve Keys alongside
Mugumbya.
And today we have a special person in the house tonight.
Before you introduce her, she's gonna drop a freestyle.
As usual, we always have the freestyle.
First, we don't care about you a lawyer, or one, a two, a three.
Here we go.
1, 2, 3, 4, let's go.
My name is Munyana. I come from a place called Bunga. A really cool place with a view. And if you're really good, I'll invite you over too. Blow, 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 blow.
This is one of our favorite parts of the show.
At least you tried, man.
It was all in the try. But you're not about to give me a contract, right? Definitely not getting a contract for that one. It's okay, Steve. You can say it. I can take it. I'm a big girl. You can say it.
You get an A for effort.
A whole medal. Thank you, guys. Thank you.
Yes, we got a special guest in the Chizim, baby. Another lady.
Yeah.
We're always happy to host ladies.
Thank you.
Not that we have anything against men.
However, ladies are something special.
Yeah.
You are special, and
thank you.
We feel you play a big role in our creative industry.
Yes.
However, we need a lot more of you. And before we dive into the first question, first introduce yourself.
All right. I always love this part. So my name is Solaire Munyana. I happen to be a narrative strategist. That's just, I know,
Hold on.
Ask the question.
A narrative strategist? What do those people do?
So, a narrative strategist is just a fancy way of me saying that I'm a TV and film producer. I had to find a way to differentiate myself from everybody else, so I had someone use that term.
Narrative strategist. Okay.
So that's what I go by. I'm a narrative strategist. Have been in the business for close to 2 decades now. And what else could I say? I love stories. I'm obsessed with stories. I love talking to people. I like reading stories. Properly. I'm one of those people who's just like, can you please wrap it up? I'm one of those people who's like, okay, bye. Then we're in the parking lot for another 20 minutes. Okay, bye.
So in other words, because all you ladies, you love these things. So you're one of the few who are making a living out of.
Very true. My natural gifts. Yes, why not?
Making a living out of talking.
I mean, it's what they do every day. So she was like, you know what? Let me be intentional.
How can this be?
I was paying attention. Yes. Let me be intentional about my gift as a woman who loves to talk. Yeah.
Okay. What else?
So I've worked in TV. I have worked in the film industry. I have worked in what could I call it? Ushers. I've worked as an usher. You know, as people would be like, "Welcome to the conference. Can I please take your name?" And you smile and you act all polite.
Yeah.
I have done beadwork. I have done a bit of tailoring. A bit of it, yes.
What do you mean?
Beadwork, like making beads, like jewelry and stuff,
Okay.
Because my mom happens to be a fashion designer, so it was one of the things where she hoped I would take her talent. But man, I don't have the patience. This business of cutting patterns and people telling you things don't fit them, I'm like, I don't have time for that in this life. So my creativity came out through, and I didn't realize it, of course, at first, but it came out through my storytelling. And it wasn't until I think I was probably 19 years old that I realized I could make a career out of it. When I was just like, they can actually pay you to actually tell stories. This is amazing. I can come up with an idea and put it out there and people pay me for this. I was like, this is really cool. So at 19, I pretty much figured out what I wanted to do with my life.
Oh.
Yeah. Okay. And just to give you an idea, I'm now 42 and 5 months, I think, yeah.
Really?
Count the months, yeah.
First of all, 42 looks good on you.
Yeah.
Sent you.
I'm just going to put that out there.
Sent you, Steve, man. It's boosting my self-esteem. Sent you, please.
No, seriously. I also like your name.
Thank you.
Munyana.
Yes.
It sounds like a movie.
It's
like from
too exotic.
You know what I mean? It sounds like it's from a Wakanda movie.
Wow.
Those names.
Thank you.
Munyana.
You know? What does it mean?
Where do they come from? What are those people?
My name, at first I thought it only came from Western Uganda. So my mom is a Muganda, my dad is a Munyankole. So I was named after, I think, one of his aunts, his favorite aunts. So I took on her name, Munyana, and another aunt called Sarah. So my full names, which are many, the three of them are Solaire, Sarah, Munyana. Those are the three names that I go by. So Munyana means calf, Enyana. The calf. So yeah, calf. But I realized Kenyans also claim it. There's a different variation of the name.
But does it still mean the same thing in Kenya?
No, I don't think it means the same thing. But Kenyans have it, Burundi, Rwanda, even in South Africa, there were some people saying that's our name. I was like, guys, it's all in the family. I'm sure we're all part of the same group. Yeah. It's probably a Bantu name, so that's why I got the name Munyana.
Oh, is it English?
No, it's French. My mother has an obsession with the French language. She loves the language, loves the country. So she wanted a girl, and she just kept saying, boy, boy, boy. So finally, when I came around, it was, when I came around, it was just like, hey, finally the girl is here. So Solaire means sunshine. It's an indirect translation.
She comes off serious. You don't come off as the last born.
Man, that's what happens when you grow up with brothers.
Last bones in the building.
Man, me and my middle child, we're always the ones who are left out.
No, you guys, you have your own set of rules. You're survivors.
You know what I mean? Yeah, we're always by ourselves.
Yeah. That's true. You guys are survivors. You know how to handle things.
Did you study here? Did you study at all, first of all?
That's a good question. Thank you for asking that. Did I actually study? Yes, I did. So I studied both in Kenya for a bit and then in Uganda for most of my education. So, of course, that adjustment from the Kenyan schooling and coming to Uganda was a bit of a trick for me, because I remember at the time, when we were in Kenya, it was all about free thinking and be a child and use your imagination. I came here, it was like 1 + 1 equals 2.
Yeah, you don't explain.
And I used to do the things of teacher, I don't understand. They were like, this child talks too much. The first time I got caned, it was a wake-up call. I was like, did you just...
Welcome to Uganda.
Were you born in Kenya?
Yes, born in Kenya, but I was in and out. So born in Kenya, grew up for a bit in Uganda. Of course, the 80s happened, with the disruption. Ended up going to Kenya, was there for a while, then came back to Uganda. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so school was very interesting for me in that regard.
Your parents were working there, I assume?
Yes, were working there because, of course, we were living in exile at the time. So it was always that thing of there'll come a time when we have to go back home.
We had Gaetano here.
Yeah, our stories are pretty similar, that generation. Yeah.
Exile.
Well, some of us didn't get the privilege of leaving the country.
Country, indeed.
I think our parents did not. But anyway, I would like to ask you something very serious.
Yes.
Why do you think there are less ladies in this industry? Film, music.
Basically,
first of all, do you think that's true?
Yes. I do think it's true. Okay. And I'll tell you why. When I was coming up as a teenager at the time, and I was working at WBS, that's where I met our boy, Hosea. So when I was coming
from Hosea's days?
Can you imagine?
Okay.
But
I've forgotten that she mentioned her age.
Hosea is much younger than me, that's to be clear.
No, because...
There's no way.
Hosea can't do much. Because Hosea... did Benon and Babus's video when they were young.
When I was still young. And then I'm not that old.
So you're not
He's my mentor.
He's your senior.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, senior. And also not just my senior, but also a senior citizen.
You know what I mean?
In this country.
Hosea did Chameleon's videos when Chameleon was young.
Yeah. Oh my goodness.
When he was starting. So you can imagine. So...
Anyway. He's saying we move on. Okay, all right. Sorry. So anyway, so it was at WBS when I realized, I think that there were very few of us women in the industry. A lot of the female representation I saw in front of the camera, not so many people behind the camera.
Yeah.
And I remember the time when I was told, Elvis Sechanzi, who was the executive director at the time, actually gave me my first job at WBS. And he saw something in me where he was like, oh, so I think you could be in front of the camera. I was like, I don't want to. But I was straight out of S6. And of course, when your elder says do something, you're like, okay, fine, I'll do it. And you remember back in the day when you used to have Links presenters, where you'd be like, coming up next is the hostel or whatever it would be. So that's what they had me do. They said, do the links.
Up next.
Now then graphics came and took over that. But I noticed then that most of the female talent was in front of the camera. But the flip side was also, I noticed that women were criticized more how are you dressed? What were you wearing? That seemed to also be an issue that came up a lot. So a lot of women couldn't deal with that form of criticism. Guys would get it, but not as pointed as the women. And then there was also the other side to it that I was able to witness quite young, and I'm glad that I did, was, Uganda at the time and even now, pretty much still very traditional. It doesn't matter how modern you are as a couple. Somehow the responsibilities of parenting will fall to you. So, you could be in the middle of the show, and you get that phone call.
You have to breastfeed.
Wait, the child is sick, and the teachers always call you. They never call the parents. I would see a lot of women struggling with that balance. So even those who wanted to pursue it would end up dropping out. But as time went on, my whole idea was I would try to encourage as many women as I can along the way and encourage them to step behind the camera. I'm like, your lifetime in front of the camera is very limited at the time. It was as long as you're young, you were great in front of the camera. But after that, you had to start thinking of what was going to happen afterwards. And behind the camera, you actually have more power. You have more authority to write stories or to tell stories the way you want. But getting people to do that was also another hard issue. So yes, there's still very few women in front of the camera. Speaking to young girls today, of course, with social media, there's a lot of critique about how you look and what you're wearing. So there's that fear of being judged. So my whole mission in life right now, anytime I meet a young creative and she's female, I'm like, you better step up to that mic, step up in front of the camera, do your thing. Because there's only one you. That's the only way I can speak to them. There's only one you. So just present your unique self to everybody. Those who like you, like you. Those who don't. Jesus was never liked. So if you can get over that mindset of people loving you and adoring you, you'll find your tribe, you'll find people, your audience that really loves the content you present. Just make sure you step up in front of the industry.
I think really social media has messed things up a little bit for a lot of people.
Yeah.
We tend to get caught up in numbers
and likes,
likes, views. There'll always be somebody who appreciates what you do.
True.
Even if it's one or two, and you change their lives. I think that's better than having a lot of likes, but you're not relevant. And,
yes, you're not giving anything of value.
Yeah,
you're absolutely right, 100%.
Because a lot of people, including myself, sometimes you're on social media. You may like something not because you like it. Sometimes it's just a passive. When you have your phone in your hand, sometimes you're like, okay, double tap, but you're not like, oh my God, this is really good. I like it.
Yes.
So the likes don't really represent or reflect how people feel about what you're doing.
That's very true.
On social media, people can follow you even if they hate you. They just want to find a way of getting you.
Yes, your stalkers. Steve, you seem to have some experience in this, it seems. You're talking from a deep place.
Yeah, no, I know. Like, when it comes to social media, like, I know how it works. I trust me.
Yeah,
I've been on social media for quite a bit. But there's one of the things that she mentioned at Benon. I don't know if women who are in the creative world or in art, if they need some sort of training, let's say if they are going to go into having children and all that and marriage, because have you noticed that most of them, their careers drop as soon as either they get married or they have a child? Like everything just like you can be like that girl used to sing. Oh, she's like the moment she got married.
Yeah, I think it's
a cultural thing.
Yeah, especially in a lot of African countries where we don't plan for that part of life for women.
You said it.
Even in our workplaces, you see some companies, they just say, she got pregnant, we need to replace her.
We ain't got no time for that.
Because for the next 5 years, you don't have this person or something like that.
I think we policy makers, bosses, and whatever, we sort of also have.
Benon, you should hit one of those sound effects.
No, seriously, you're spot on. Like the biggest word you said is planning. To know if someone gets pregnant, you have to think through it. How are we going to be able to still work with this person through this time? How can we adjust to that?
And also be able to appreciate and see that it's part of life. It's it's normal.
It's not It's
it's not like
It's not a disease.
Disability. Like, I don't know.
That's true.
Like
I think you've said something really valuable there, because sometimes people are wondering, what do the women need to do? Women are left with two choices. It's either you're going to have a family or you're not, if you're going to move in this industry. So hearing Benon say something like, it's up to us now, the ones who are making the policies. Like, can we make life a little more, can we accommodate and plan for that in life so that people aren't put off having that work-life balance? Like, do I have to sacrifice having a family in order for me to have this career, or can I have it both? But of course, knowing maybe if I'm going to go on to be a parent, I have to scale back on certain things. Like, I can definitely still be a valuable person in this company.
One of the people who has really handled that well is Vinka. In my she had a baby. She's on a roll. She got back on stage and she's killing it.
And I see like our tabloids and these funny TV shows, blogs. They put a lot of pressure on ladies, especially the musicians. Oh, she's pregnant. Can you believe that? Like, as if it's a crime, And some of the girls, they don't even know how to handle that. Handle that.
True.
It's terrible. So usually there's a pattern that I want to confirm.
Okay.
Usually ladies, even guys.
Thank goodness. That's going to be like, I'm not an expert now.
Usually their parents, or growing up, there's a bit of, the parents are a bit open-minded. They're not boxed in. Should be a doctor, lawyer, that kind of stuff.
True.
What were your parents like?
My parents are like my biggest supporters. I think I was and I recognize my privilege in that regard, that I'm very blessed. I think also being at the end of the line also takes pressure off of me. Like, I have a brother who's a lawyer, so he took care of that.
We already have lawyers.
We already have lawyers.
It's okay,
He took the pressure off of me. But I think specifically my mom, because she is a creative herself, she was someone whom I observed how she used to roll in the industry. My mom back in 2000, maybe it was 1999 or 2000, my mom is a Muganda. So her mother, who's my grandmother, obviously, was a very traditional, like when she hit, I think her 50s, she was like, I have to start wearing a gomes. This is a lady who's been a headmistress at Zambia, St. Peter's. She, is a teacher, but suddenly she went traditional. And I was just like, now I have to really look like I'm a Muganda woman, and I'm going to be wearing my chikoi and everything with my gomes that has 5 meters worth of fabric. But, she was getting older, and my mom was just like, you can't keep wearing a gomes. For goodness sake, you have to wear, try and wearing a bui, She was like, I'm Muganda, chill me. So my mom then decided to design a dress, and she designed the Gomesi 2000. That's what she called it, where she just made it a dress, and then the belt was the sash. Instead of you having to struggle to tie, it was just a clip on, a button on, but you could still wear the chikoi. So my grandmother sort of accepted. She's like, okay, if it still has those elements, then I believe that it's still a Gomesi. So I think by observing her and even how she encouraged me, because she'd just be like, you're really good at English, you're really good at telling stories. Till this day, she's just like, you're really an amazing storyteller. So with that sort of encouragement, and even my brothers, when you grow up with boys, you're built different. Like those guys, they feel it's their responsibility to harden you. Like, we are going to hit you with all the blows before life can actually hammer them at you. So because we grew up, of course, in the 80s and the 90s, entertainment wasn't that readily available. So my brothers were very gifted storytellers. We just had this habit of, using your imagination. You'll be seated out in the compound as kids, so bored out of your mind, there's nothing to do. It's 3 p.m. in the afternoon, literally nothing. And then my brother would just be like, imagine the ground starts to shake right now, and it bursts open, and out shoots out oil. You're now a millionaire. What's the first thing you buy? Go. And it'll be like, and you can't do the things of, I'll buy sweets. Of course, I was like a young kid. I'll buy sweets, I'll buy about what? And you'll be like, your thing is weak. Let me tell you what I'll do. I'll pull up to school in a limousine. It will be a Mercedes. I'll have bodyguards. And you'll be like, wow. So I found that my imagination was really cultivated at that time a lot. So I grew up with a creative family, much as creativity wasn't something that we found very encouraged here. Like, making MC Hammer pants because MC Hammer was the guy at the time, and, going out at Uganda House had all these tailors and embroidery people, school outfitters, penny garments. So we'd go there and get these stickers that you could iron onto jackets, the Mighty Ducks, Lego Eagles. Like, we'd come up with all these things. My mom was like, if you want a costume for your school performance, you can make it. You can tell me what you want, but you can also make it yourself. So I think with that creativity coming in and also reading a lot, it was very easy as a child to actually nurture that gift. My dad is quite traditional, so there's a time when I rolled up to him and I told him in S4, I don't want to study anymore. I want to be a beauty therapist. And the young man looked at me and said, what is that? And I said, well, you teach people how to look after their hair, nails, and makeup. And he was just like, does that put food on the table? I was like, I don't know. But it sounds really cool. He was like, yeah, you're going to continue with your education. Beauty therapist will put on pause. So it took him a while to come around to it. And I think even now, if you ask him, what does your daughter do? He'll be like, something to do with the cameras and telling stories. Yeah, something along those lines. Yeah, but he's very, very encouraging. And he's also a very gifted storyteller himself.
Oh, yeah. So it runs in the family.
Yes, indeed.
That's dope. She was talking about putting stickers on their jackets. Some of us were designing cobwebs.
When you're ironing on the back of the shirt and stuff.
Man,
Okay, so.
Yes.
The big one in the room.
Yes.
Tell us about the hostel.
Oh, the hostel. What do you want to know?
Let her first tell us about the big projects she's worked on. And then we'll dive into the hostel.
Oh, gosh, looking back, what are the big projects I've worked on?
Or was that like your first, big project?
That was the first project I was given creative control over with the hostel. But before that, I was working. I'd say the big one we had done, but I wasn't like the main person. But I was one of the producers while at NTV. One of the producers I was working with, Kifa Walusimbi, we were obsessed with So You Think You Can Dance. We had a period of time when NTV was shut down for close to 8 months. Government wasn't feeling us then. So we were shut down for 8 months.
You had to guess.
We had to guess. So we were, when you're just showing up to work doing absolutely nothing, like we're still being paid, but we're showing up to work and everyone starts getting a little, angsty, and they're just like, what are we going to do? My goodness, it's so boring. 1 week went to 2, 3 weeks, 4 weeks, a month. It stretched on. So during that time, we were watching a lot of stuff because there's internet, why not just watch? So You Think You Can Dance had just started. So Kifa keeps watching it and he's just like, you guys, I think we could do something like this in Uganda. And everyone's like, we don't have dance choreographer teachers. We don't have this. Like, we were listing all the reasons why it couldn't be done. Kifa kept pushing, said, this thing can be done. So he came up with the idea, instead of So You Think You Can Dance, he called it Hot Steps, right? So that was the first reality dance show that had been done, at least to that magnitude. And he was like, let's cover the country, let's go around. So I remember being a part of that and realizing how amazing it felt, engaging with an audience right there and then, having people perform, people bring up their best performances. And then actually, I think Rosemary was one of the, now a well-known choreographer, was one of the dancers who came up. And at the time,
from
she was...
the 3 girls.
Yeah, and she was a kid at the time. At the time, I think she was like 16 or something. And I remember just how amazing it was to see people's lives being transformed. She didn't win that year, but I think she's become one of the most successful choreographers since. Yeah. So with Hot Steps, we did a whole bunch of other shows. There was Profiles, where we looked into, it was a magazine show. The great thing about working in TV, you are forced to work, well, not forced, let me not use that word. You're encouraged. You're encouraged to work under many different genres. Like, you have to learn, let's see, can I do a live music show, jam agenda sort of thing? Can I actually do a documentary series? Can I do a travel show? Can I do news? Okay, I never touched news because I was like, I don't even understand the whole aspect behind it, but I could do it, but I didn't want to do it. So it was learning the different genres, and then after that, figuring out what you actually did very well. So by the time I left NTV, 4 years in, I was itching to do something different, and that's when the hostel came up. Now, the hostel came as an idea because my first responsibility as a creative director was go find us producers. I was like, in this country of ours, where am I going to find them? Everyone has been taken up. So the hostel came through, and when it came through, it was an idea submitted by 2 music producers, Moses and Emmanuel, and they just said,
Moses
Sabiti.
Sabiti.
Yes, and Emmanuel, I remember his nickname was Buba. Yeah, so those were the two music producers, and it was based on their lives, the hostel. So when the story came, it was just about two guys and their perspective. So I remember looking at it saying, okay, this looks good, but where's the female element? Like, we're not feeling the females, almost like showpieces. So we tried to work on that, and then we much later realized, and at the time, sorry, let me just even backtrack. My boss at the time, Conrad Nkutu, says, okay, so like, come up with ways in which we're going to make money. And I came in as a creative, guys. Remember, my title's creative director. That's what I'm going to do, right? I create content, guys. That's what I do. And I was like, you create products that are going to bring money.
Oh, so from NTV, you join...
Fast Track Productions.
Yeah.
And that's when I was told, come up with ideas to make money. And I was like, that has never been my problem. There's a team called the marketing and sales department. That's their thing.
They will deal with...
Me, I know to create. Let those guys sell. It's like, no. You create what can actually sell.
Yeah, because you creative, sometimes you have a tendency of just creating things that
don't go anywhere.
Then this guy flies to the moon. And
where's the money? You know. So that was part of the challenge when he said, and he just said, I want you to come up with a concept for a daily show. So remember those shows we grew up watching? I was like, about which ones now? It's like Days of Our Lives, Neighbors, All My Children. I was like, yeah, that's in America. And they have entire sets dedicated to this. We don't have that. Do you see where we are? And he was like, yeah. He listened to me list all the excuses, said, So go about figuring out how we can create a daily show. And that's how it was one of those things of challenge accepted. He gave me a problem and he was just like, you solve it. So the hostel was huge in terms of what we wanted to deliver. And I remember I asked everybody I knew, do you know how to do a daily show? And everyone would come back to us and laugh and say, it can't be done in Uganda. Maybe ask Kenyans. Kenyans laughed at us and said, you guys can't even afford us. I think they really assured us. But they were willing to do it. I know, they were willing to do it. But then Conrad's thing was, this has to be done by Ugandans. Because that was his bigger picture. I actually want to create a place where people can be hired, where, it's almost like a learning curve. Come in, actually get hired, start working, and then... you can go on to build your career. So the hostel was huge. And I realized the time when I started doing it and we started to break down how much it would entail, what does it take to create a daily show? When I started reaching out to people and I couldn't find anyone within our community who could give me some clear guidance. Remember, this is early, 2010, roughly, 2009, early 2010. Reached out to a guy called Chuck Peters, who was a YouTuber. And at the end of every YouTube video, he was a DOP. He would say, hey, if you have any questions, reach out to me and ask. So I sent him an email and I just said, hey, from Uganda, it's a little country in East Africa. This is a project that we have. Like, you can't assume people know who we are. So it's like, we have this project coming up and this is what we want to do. And he wrote back in less than, I think it was 24 hours, he had responded. He said, Solaire, first and foremost, best of luck, because this sounds like a crazy project. But in order for you to execute this, this is what I'm just thinking that you need to do. You need to have a limitation of not more than 2 to 3 sets that you use on a rotational basis. How many characters you can have. And then he went on to share his workflow with me, his production schedule. And it was so important in that regard. Like, that's the reason why I am always giving back. If someone comes to me for advice, I always give it back to them because of what he said. And because of the kindness I got from a complete stranger. And he shared all of this with me, and that's how we started off the hostel. We brought on, at the time I knew we need script writers. My only experience at that time in TV dramas was that I knew how to watch them. Like, I knew what made a good story. Like, that's a great story, that's a good story, that one's fake.
That's important as well.
Because actually, so here, we have Julius. But Julius, for lack of better words, he can't explain any musical technicalities, but
he knows what makes
music. He knows a good song. If he will listen to it and say, no, I don't like that song, or I like that song.
Exactly.
As simple as that.
Yeah. And I think that's also another important thing for young creatives out there, or people who are in the creative industry, to trust your gut. There are things that you know. You can't explain it. Like for me, my tell sign to know that something is good is that I get goosebumps. I can actually feel it when it's a good story, and I'm like, that's something, and I know immediately follow that. But the minute I ignore it and let it go, I won't remember. And maybe much later, someone will say it, and I'll be like, damn it, I had that same idea, and now somebody else is actually executing it. So it was following my gut and just knowing that I know what makes a good story. I know what, and Gossip Girl at the time was huge. I think Desperate Housewives was also another big thing. 24 was a big thing. And let me tell you the amount of resistance that we got from people. When we finally got good people on the show, one of the things we made sure, I got people who are much more experienced than me on board. People like Kwezi Kaganda, Konso Buzabo, who are very gifted script writers. And then even with their addition, we realized we needed more. So we had to get editors who knew how to edit shows like this, because not any editor could do it. So Esther Chintu joined us. Esther coming from Makutano Junction.
A female.
A female, yeah. No, but even Konso is a female now. Konso is a female, yeah. Okay. So it was good because we needed that female balance. How do women talk? How do they express their emotions? All of this has to come through. And I think we went for 8 months after we shot the pilot, pitching to every company you can think of. Our MD at the time, Conrad Nkutu. There was no door that was shut to him. He was a former managing director of Monitor and had also been at Nation Media Group. So we had access. We could get into that door. But walking into that boardroom and convincing guys, the guys are seated looking at you as you're pitching your heart out, and you're like, so guys, this would be a really great show. And you show them the pilot, and they're just looking at you going, who is going to watch this? Me, I watched Desperate Housewives. I remember a classmate of mine telling me that, and I was just like, what? You're supposed to be supporting me, like, what's going on here? She was just like, me, I don't have time to watch these local shows. Me, I watched Desperate Housewives, and I was like, wow. Somebody else said, a local production. I have DSTV, I don't watch local productions. I was like, you guys. So how are we going to grow the industry if you don't support us? So with Hostel, in the very beginning, once we realized the amount of work we had in front of us, we knew how much it was going to take, one, in terms of time. I remember personally saying to myself, because at the time I was probably 28, I'd gotten a job of a lifetime, opportunity of a lifetime. Someone saying, I don't care what you do, just 2 things, manage your budget and manage timelines. That's all. And you better make sure you keep an eye on both of those. So having that freedom finally, when you're complaining, man, if I was a boss of this place, man, if they'll just give me the room, the things I would do. Hey, now the opportunity has come. Now you do it. What can you do? And I knew by building the right team, that was part of it. Yeah. Getting people who were smarter than me on board was part of it. I had to be a leader, not a boss. Tough. Yeah. To be a leader, not a boss, not to think I have all the answers. Like me saying, no, guys, I would have to humble self. And I don't know who, maybe it's the cook who has told me, Gwe, I can't be feeding your chaps if you're not letting people out on time. Otherwise, guys are going to be eating cold food or whatever it might be. Or listening to the sound guy who says, Gwe, every time we're shooting, the location you picked is beneath a highway. All the planes are passing over here, so there's nothing I can do. The quality of sound is terrible. So having to make myself a student, and also knowing that YouTube, I was a student of the University of YouTube from very early on. Reading of books. There's one called The Success Through a Positive Mindset by Napoleon Hill. I read that book like it was my Bible, like highlighted, things about what do you do when you go into territory that is unknown. There's no one has a blueprint to give you to say, this is how you do it. Step 1 is pa. And then also making sure I learned, the learning curve was very steep. I made a number of mistakes. And I knew at the very beginning, once I saw the magnitude of the work, I said, I do not have a social life for the next 2 years. Like I could see it, and I just said, for the next 2 years, in order for this project to get to where it has to get to, I can't take my eye off the ball.
Bye parties.
Everything. By the way, I told friends, it was almost like a dear whatever letter of, guys, I sent them a group text, I will not be joining you anymore for any of our progress, so count me out. And they thought I was joking, but I was like, you're not going to see me. I was working all the way in Mutungo, so I was working, and we were all working from I was up by 5 a.m., back home by maybe midnight, and then to do it all over again Monday through Saturday. So that went on for about 4 years, back to back, having to work like that. Just making sure you can't fall sick, you can't afford to fall sick, right? If you're sick, you show up. Just show up, at least people see you seated in the chair working. So, but one of the things I learned about that was the buck couldn't stop with me. Learning to empower other people, how my boss had empowered me. Actually grooming talent. Finally.
That is so important. I learned that the hard way. I was the kind of person with what they call the founder's syndrome.
Yes.
Everything had to run by me.
The DNA.
I felt like I can't lose control of this.
Micromanaging everything.
But it's so.
It's a tough lesson.
Yeah, and I mean there are other passionate people that are capable of doing the same things that you do.
Exactly.
And it only just makes you grow and relieves you into doing other things. And so it's very
and also
important.
in terms of perspective, the perspective becomes wider, because you can have you can have an idea in your head. The moment you share it with someone, and someone can be like, "Have you ever thought about that?" You're like, "Oh my God, that's even
amazing.
bigger." You know? We had Nathan Magola here, and he said for him, more than anything in the world. Did he say, what did he call it? Project management?
Yeah, project management.
He was like,
you can be the best creative, doing amazing stuff, but if you can't meet deadlines, you know.
You understand that kind of thing. You can't manage your, like you said, budgets and timelines.
Yeah.
Like if you can't beat those, it doesn't matter how creative you are, you're still going to fail. People don't want to work with anyone who doesn't want to.
And you must know so many people who have all these amazing projects on their laptops.
Yeah.
Guys who haven't released, they say, "Man, I did this thing." Then you look and you're like, "How come you haven't released it?"
Exactly.
Man, these things are tight.
I need to fix here ending. Then
yes. There's also knowing when to let go of things. Like even with the show being the first. There was a standard that we were aiming for, but we were here. And I remember just thinking, if you almost want to push it up, like if we could only get up here, but we had to go through the process.
That show was so big.
Yeah,
I've met people in Nigeria, and I think in South Africa and Kenya, who talk about it. Like, there's this show that was called, because it was on DSTV.
Yes,
right?
it was on DSTV.
So they were like, there's this show from Uganda, The Hostel. It's really, really nice.
Yeah.
Like, I've met people from away from here. And they know the show.
But it all has to do now with the vision of the leader.
Yeah.
So we had someone like Conrad Nkutu as our vision. Like, he did not see things stopping in Uganda. His whole thing was, this thing is going continental as far as I'm concerned, and I'm also aiming at the diaspora.
Yeah.
He was one of those people who was thinking about already having a Netflix sort of Africa. I think Netflix hadn't come about by that time.
Yeah.
I think maybe they were just starting out. Blockbusters was still a thing. So Nigeria, I think someone had started it off. There was someone in America who had also started, I think it was, I don't know what it was, but it was a subscription pay so that you can actually make sure that people, a video on demand platform. Yeah. So having people who are visionaries as your leader is very, very important, because if they can give you the big picture.
Magola mentioned that as well. It's very important. You can all be very talented, but you need that person who's going to point that, this is where we're going.
Yes.
Yeah.
And keep the vision in front of the entire team, so that everybody, whether it's from the PA all the way to the director, everyone sees the vision. This is the this is the mountaintop we're going to conquer. So I think great leadership helped a lot, and even I found mentors who pushed me and made sure that I could keep striving for more. So Hostel was one of those moments where I was like, this has taken 4 years of my life. And I think at the time, with the popularity of the show, one, because it was also the first of. That's also the advantage of doing things. So that's why I encourage people, if you have an idea and no one has done it, go for it. Chances are you being the first to have done it will be your success story in itself. And it being the first of, we made it look possible. The corporate world started to take us seriously. Before, guys would be like, guys from the creative industry, you come in with your dreadlocks and your ripped jeans and you don't take things seriously. So even I had to play the game, where I was like, I would dress up corporate to meet you day one. When you find me in the field, at the time I had a lot more hair than this. My afro would be out, I'm wearing my jeans, my sneakers, but it was just to show the balance between the corporate world and the creative world and how they could work together. And we sort of shattered that to make them take us more seriously as a business, as an industry, especially in the film and TV world. So Hostel was great, did that for 4 years. And then on top of that, it became one of the things of, if you did it once, you can do it again. Five at Home followed. Another family, good times sort of centric. Like, now let's do something that's not so middle class, but to actually show the working class and people who are working to make ends meet. So that was one show. And then once again, I realized I can't duplicate myself. Then let somebody else come and take over. So another producer, Kathy Bagaya, who had risen up from being...
Oh, I know Kathy.
You know Kathy. Yeah. So Kathy started off as a scriptwriter, then moved up to head writer, because the minute I noticed this is someone who can handle the writing team, my hands as head of production, now I can take my hands off because everybody knows their goals and what they're to deliver. She took on as producer, and she actually grew that series. It was also another 90 episode series. That was also the thing about The Daily Show, 90 episodes in. And then after that, there was another show we came up with, thanks to, what's that show called? Game of Thrones. You know, there's that line to Jon Snow, "Are you not a man, Jon Snow?" Right? And I remember we used to joke about it in the writing room. We'd be like, everyone would start doing something and say, "Are you not a man? Like, what's going on here?" And we thought about that statement and said, "Are you not a man?" If you translate it to Luganda, and my Luganda is terrible, don't kill my pronunciation. Something happens and someone says, "Toli Msajja." Like, what's going on? Like, man up. So we wanted to know, what does that mean? Are you not a man? And can we flip it on its head and show someone, a guy who's doing things completely opposite from what culture and tradition demands of him? So my favorite time in hostel was really, I'll be very biased, was the writing process. I like the creativity and brainstorming process. All our trauma was put on that table. People would be crying, "Man, this thing happened to me when I was at uni. This guy broke up with me and this happened." So we were able to sort of heal ourselves through writing hostel and telling the stories. And even guys from the crew would come in and pop up and say, "Hey, why don't you guys write about X, Y, and Z? This might be a good story to throw in." So the hostel, once I was able to conquer that mountain, I needed another mountain to conquer.
Sorry to cut you short.
No, go on.
I'm wondering, did you have any leadership skills that helped you maneuver through all that?
I'll say this: when it came to leadership, right from my days in WBS, and it's something, if you notice from the time you're a child, I was always being class monitor, prefect. I was always put into those positions because I'm a bit bossy. As a last born, I can do that sometimes. Be like, "I think we should do this or this," and then no one listens to me. So it was weird when people would listen to me. I'd be like, "Oh, okay." So that was encouraged and groomed in me, but I didn't particularly like how leaders would be punished sometimes. People are talking, class teacher comes, who was talking, you keep quiet, they punish you instead, and you're like, "Man, this thing sucks. I don't want to do it anymore."
You have to be a snitch.
You know, and you start saying it was that one, and that one.
But don't you think that's how the real world works?
No, because if
let me give you an example.
Oh.
If we have a client here at Swangs, and he goes through these guys, and I do the work, and it's trash, I'm not going to go to the boardroom, but they're going to go.
Yes.
And then the person who is sitting on the other side of the table is like, "But Benon, serious."
Yes. That's
This
true.
is trash.
That's all I got.
Yes. But you see, now that's where, as a leader, you grow, where you can't point fingers.
Yeah.
Also realizing that when you're the leader, it looks so glamorous. I'm sure people look at you, Steve, at you, Benon, even Julius, and they're like, "Man, to be that person. I also want to be that person in that seat, calling the big shots and in the big bucks." But then people don't understand.
When it backfires,
when
you have to carry it.
Yeah, when stuff hits the fan.
Your name is the one written on the
It's the one where people are just like, "This guy's never work with them again." But not only that, you have to be able to take both the credit and the criticism at the same time. As willing as you want to take the credit and let everybody know that, I was the person who did this. Also, when things go wrong, acknowledge it and take it on, right? So in terms of leadership, I learned a lot about empathy. And this is where, as women, I would say, Benon, to answer your question, see how could we get more women involved? Women sometimes are critiqued for their emotions. "You're such an emotional person. You're so sensitive. Oh my goodness, you're sensitive. I just said this thing and you blew up." Our emotions are a strength. And I didn't realize that until much later. And I used to be one of those people who would be like, "I have to be hard. I have to let people know that I'm not a soft man because this is a man's world. I have to." And also, once again, growing up with brothers, it was that thing of don't show weakness. You have to be hard. Don't show weakness. Don't start crying.
It's an African thing.
Suck it up. Don't start crying. Quickly. You know, if you start crying, they beat me. They'll be like, every time we play with you start crying and reporting us.
So, don't want to play with you.
Yeah, so I had to harden. So I used to think that was a strength. Be strong like that. But the funny thing was, I realized also, my emotions, or my sensitivity, as people called it, was what helped me talk to people easily.
Yeah.
From the time I was a kid, I could talk to anybody. You can put me anywhere. I'll start, even if there's a language barrier, I'll start boxing. There's a time I was in Somalia, for goodness sake. That's a language that you can't even relate to any Bantu language that you can sort of box around with. It's completely different.
What were you doing in Somalia?
That's an interesting. So that was the other mountain to conquer, right?
It's true. She makes money off talking.
Yeah.
Okay?
True. So, but just to answer your question, in terms of leadership, it was empathy. It was learning how to know that I am not always right. I don't always have the answers. To be humble enough to accept it. Yeah.
That's tough.
To be humble enough to accept it.
Yeah.
But also not to take crap from people. That's also another thing.
Now, hold on.
Don't take crap from people.
Because now the balance of thinking that you don't have all the answers, but also not taking crap, like knowing what you want. I know that as much as I shouldn't think that I know everything.
Yeah.
I also have to be confident in what I believe should be. That balance is very,
it's
very
tricky.
Because if you're not, then everyone can always throw you any direction.
Yeah. You
then
have to
lose
be
that
certain.
focus.
Exactly, and you've said it. You have to be focused to the point where you're like, I get that you're tired. I get that you were working until 3 a.m. yesterday, and now I am here having you back on set at 6 a.m. I get that you're exhausted, and I'm sorry that you feel that way. And maybe I might work out something for you later on in the week where I can get you a day off.
That's a skill.
We have to hit this target.
It's a skill.
TV is a monster that has to be fed, and it doesn't care that you didn't sleep, that you didn't. It's just like it's waiting. It's like, give me my food. 7:30 has hit on a Friday. Where is my food? So it was having to understand, meet the person where they're at, but then know what you have to get them from this point.
Vision. You know how to make people feel like it's torturing you now, but I guarantee you what is coming out of it. Like to bring someone to that point of like, I think I can push 2 more hours.
Yeah, you almost have to be like a negotiator.
You know what I mean?
And you've said it exactly. Thank you for yourself, please. Yes.
Trust me, I do that sometimes.
Yeah, I know
because
he does.
Sometimes we can have an 18-hour day shoot, and the client needs the cut, needs a fast cut. You know, there are unreasonable timings.
Yes. If we want it tomorrow, it's only 5 minutes. What's your problem?
You have to.
It can be crazy.
You're like, we need to do this,
and you have to encourage.
But we're all humans.
Yeah.
They can get tired, or they have
issues at home.
Yeah, issues at home, responsibilities. Yeah, so empathy plays a lot.
It does, and you also have to know when to fight for your team.
Yeah.
That's also another thing. My whole thing with the team that I promised them, and every time I'm in a position of leadership, I'm like, I will cover you. I promise that I'll cover you. Almost acting like a buffer, a cushion,
actually,
a bumper.
Yeah.
Benon, I'll give you your flowers now.
Yeah.
I think he does it. No, like,
Applause.
There are days he'll be like, I think you've had let's try again. What we do, just let's do it early tomorrow.
Yes.
Instead of, like he's able to tell that I think we've pushed.
No, sometimes you can see that I'm not going to get anything creative out of this guy.
Truth be told, the tank is empty.
Let's
the tank is empty.
Yeah.
No, it's absolutely, and the empathy in terms of even now just protecting your people, covering them, but it has to be a partnership of if I cover you, promise me this. Because we're in this together. If things backfire and you keep things to yourself and you switch off your phone and I can't reach you and the client's screaming at me and I'm like, now what do I say? How do I protect you? So I think also being comfortable with the idea that not everybody would like you. That would be my last one in terms of. And even as women, we struggle with this, but I think even as creatives, you want people to like you. You want to get along. You want to be a big family, because that's what you've said. We're a big family here, you guys. Let's look out for one another. And then you realize this person is upset with you because you made them work. And you're like, but that's your job. Like, that's why we're here. And it's having to, once I actually understood that, and luckily, once again, I put this to my childhood and my family. This whole thing of being liked, they used to just stop wanting to be liked. Like, what's this whole business of you? This person would be like, and then what? Did you die? And you're still breathing? And I'd be like, actually, the world is still moving on when this person doesn't like me.
That's why, social media is a bad syndrome. We want likes, want to be liked.
The validation.
And then you go to the extreme of doing crazy things.
Because
and then
it's
at the
an
end of the
addiction.
day, you're like,
And that's the thing, to know that you're a human being who's very fallible. Like, you can fall for these things. You'll see people falling for it saying, how could you do that for likes? But the truth of the matter is, once you get hooked on that high, it's very easy.
Dopamine.
It's like, I need them to do it again. I need them to say my thing was great. I need them. And I'm really thankful that even for me, when social media was just starting up, when the hostel was out, like doing these things of recaps, I was learning from other shows. I'd look and see how do they promote, and then I'd do the same thing. You have to write a synopsis for every episode. You have to be able to do an episode tag. The NTV programming manager, Pamela Amwai, would be teaching me these things. Solaire, you have to do this. This is our client telling me what to do. So that was the partnership. I had to say, okay, let me learn what I need to do in order to execute this job. The constant learning, I cannot express it enough. You will never know everything. I had to read a book about project management. It was there's a life skills sort of series. It was that's where all my money was going.
Called?
I'll find it, but I know it's very small, and it's called Project Management Life Skills something. It's like a series, different things. So I remember it would give me, it's just short. You know, if you don't want to read too much, just they're like.
We'll need to dig it up, and
we need to get because here we have Benon and Julius. Like sometimes we have a show. And that show has to be detailed up to almost like every minute. Like what happens at 8?
Yeah.
Who is coming on? What are they going to say? What are they going to wear? What are they, like everything has to be, the project has to be managed.
Yeah, because now when you, because Steve, when you think about, even you as a musician, I was very fortunate to watch Steve perform just on camera. I mean on a laptop. But I saw how you engaged.
He thinks that.
Yeah.
Don't worry. I'll next time I'll take you to watch him live, not on laptop.
Not on laptop.
It's a different experience. Please.
But there's a way in which you engaged with the audience, and you said, "I want you to sing along." And I think it was, "I love what I do."
Yeah.
And you put it in a way that the experience was what was, because it was at a SOFA event, right?
Yeah.
And please Google SOFA. I don't even have the thing to explain it. Maybe Steve will, but. You made it such an experience for the audience that even me who was watching on the laptop, I felt like I was there. I was just like, man, this would have been cool if I was there to experience it. So even now, as you're talking about Benon and Julius and how they're planning minute by minute, what's the experience you're giving to your audience?
Yeah,
the reason why you are doing what you're doing.
That's a big word.
Yeah.
But what did you study?
I studied broadcast journalism, so I did mass communication. I'll have you know that I was kicking and fighting every step of my education. I feel so bad for my parents, but I was just one of those kids who was just like, I don't get the school system. I really don't. I don't get the cram work. I don't get why you won't explain to me. If I put up my hand, I'm being punished for it. So it used to frustrate me a lot. And the only subjects where there was freedom, English literature, things to do with English composition. So when I finally went to A-level and I was doing history, economics, and literature, and divinity, I love divinity because, of course, it's a different way of studying the Bible. You're studying now the history of the times. You know, you're not just studying what Jesus said or what Moses said. What were they eating? What was the landscape like? The stories are written there just in the little text. So as a result, I wanted to do...
Those people who did healthy or something.
Yes, I did healthy. I did healthy. Hated economics though, but, you know, I was just like, can't I do like... remove the E and I can do everything else. No, it's never been done before. So I liked, when I was studying that, I was curious about what I was going to study at university. I didn't even want to go to university. I was like, there's nothing there for me. I don't see the point.
At 19?
Yeah.
I thought people usually don't know what
I think they do.
They do?
But they don't, they're not encouraged to.
Smart ones. Those ones. The Lucas ones.
The ones with big
heads. The ones who wear glasses.
I wasn't wearing glasses at that time. But yeah, I would be one of those big-headed kids. But I'd say big-headed in the sense that I was curious. That was my thing.
Curiosity, yeah, that's a good word.
Yeah. In fact, when people ask, can creativity be taught? Someone, I'll drop another book title here, Curiosity by Brian Grazer. He's the one who finally changed my mind about it because I believed creativity could be taught. Brian Grazer says it can't. He said creativity can't be taught. What can be taught is curiosity. If you can encourage people to be curious.
They are creative naturally.
The creativity will come in.
Okay, so for you, do you believe creativity can be taught?
No, now I don't. At first, but I might, past me might be like, what? I think it can be taught, but when I looked clearly at how I teach creativity, it's curiosity.
Yeah, that's what I feel like curiosity is the foundation of creativity. Like you want to see what's going to come out of
if we do this, that, if we
even science.
Science is an art. When you look at it, it's just something fascinating and beautiful because you're wondering how, you know, there's this really tiny thing that I just discovered called a springtail insect. You can barely see it, but it jumps really high. Like it's like a tiny thing and it jumps from here to there. And I was just like, never really bothered about it. On YouTube as usual, some guy has a channel dedicated to all these amazing insects. And he actually documents how this springtail jumps. And it moves in a very fascinating way. It almost does a rumble tumble before it lands, I think, on its back. Like it's not very graceful on land, but very graceful on water, how it lands. So curiosity is what led him down that path. Because he used his scientific equipment that was meant for something else to say, I wonder what's in my backyard and if I can do this. And he showed how he even caught it, just puts like a bright tala like that, a mosquito net, things go in, he gathers them, takes them to his lab.
So I feel like that's the extreme of what society does to us. Like, because in society, unfortunately in some societies, like there's a certain way or path that everyone is supposed to take.
Yeah.
So that's one side, and then there are people who jump out of that. I like, but what is on the other? What is outside?
Yes, this box.
Being a doctor or being
Actually,
a lawyer. Like, what is outside that?
I feel the African or even the Ugandan education system sometimes suppresses that.
Yeah.
It suppresses our curiosity, our creativity.
Yeah.
So it's almost like a cookie cutter system.
Yeah.
They all want
We don't eat that one. No.
Yes.
cram,
Yeah.
go to Makerere, get a job.
And you understand why it is the way it is. I mean, even now with you were asking me how I ended up in Somalia. One of the things that I did in between, after I'd done the hostel, 5 at Home, I did also just co-produced a Turning Around Uganda policy series that came as a result of an argument between me and my boss. That I think 2011 elections were coming up, and he was like, "You need to go and register to vote." I was like, "Yeah, I'm not interested. Like, if you're giving me time off, I'm using those days to sleep because I barely had a day off since I started this job." And he was like, "Solaire, you're the reason why this nation your generation is responsible for why it went backwards." I said, "You're the very people who brought in the issue that you're claiming. So now why is it our responsibility to fix it?" But it's like, you not participating is you being part of the problem. So I just got into an argument with him where I said, if I can't see the difference, and if I just see the same saga being repeated year after year, if you're just telling me one person is responsible for the state of the country, that doesn't make sense to me. Show me how I, as an ordinary Ugandan woman, can make an impact. As a normal citizen with no connections, I have no clout, what can I do? And that's how Turning Around, he created the idea. He then created Turning Around Uganda, which was now talking to people from all sectors, education, health. What do you think we can do? What do you think we can do to fix it? Simon Kasiate hosted that one. And I remember that being really amazing and saying, oh, I thought I wasn't interested in politics. Turns out I am. After doing that, sorry, go on.
No, you were talking about, I was going to talk about one story that Benon usually tells, how art comes out of, with the weirdest places, how that song came about. Some
guy was really hungry. He's like, but guy, guys, I'm starving. Please give me some money. Otherwise, like, I'm going to do something to myself.
Yes.
Can you imagine?
Like I might kill myself. And then Mose was like, you know,
that's
a story.
That's
a
song. Dope song.
It is, and relating to the human emotion, like, do you even know what it's like to be so hungry that all you're thinking of is I'll finish myself. I'll do myself harm if you don't help me out right now. I think that's pretty powerful. And just paying attention to that.
So in Somalia, it was work still.
Somalia was work still. So Somalia had been presented to me as an opportunity before, but this was in the early days of 2011 when things were really, really bad there. I think UPDF had just been, AMISOM had just been created, UPDF had just been deployed. It was talk of bombings and everything happening there every day. And someone said, oh, there's an opportunity to come and teach female journalists here. And I was like, oh, okay, cool. I'll do it. Because it was something new. For me, that's my thing. My kryptonite is a new idea. Just wave it in front of me and see if I won't jump.
Not money?
No, the kryptonite is actually that. You just give me an idea, and that's what I'm trying to walk away from. The whole kryptonite thing, I'm just like, keep it away from me, because if it's not paying, I shouldn't look at it. So,
because with bombs flying over, there should be more money.
There should be, but still the money wasn't enough. I remember I brought the idea to my mom, and she said, over my dead body. And I was like, Ish. By the time now parents start saying those things, she was like, I have never at any point in time stopped you from doing what you want. This right here?
Nope.
So in 20, and this is the importance, and this is how I have to tell people, when it comes to hiring people, I hired a friend and a former colleague from NTV, because he was perfect for that job. He's called Tony Mwangala. So Tony came in to be my deputy head of production. And Tony had an opportunity that came up and he needed to go for it. He said, this is an opportunity of a lifetime. I'm so sorry. I know I've just come in and I'm leaving, but this is something that I can't pass on. So we were able to give him we just said, okay, fine. If you can't, that's totally fine. You can go, no hard feelings. Then Tony reached out to me a couple of, I think, weeks later and just said, hey, Solaire, there's this opportunity in Somalia. Are you interested? I was like, Somalia has come again, second time around. Okay. By this time I'd left. I'd already left. Yeah, God is saying, go. I know it's the, what is it? The desert you're going to, but you go. I'm sending you to Egypt. So the opportunity came up, and it was a time when things were really, really hard for me. One of the things that I'd advise creatives is also to take care of yourselves. You cannot pour from an empty cup.
Yeah.
I'd spent 4 years without a break, and I was pouring constantly. You know, the show, and there were shows now, they were demanding more and more of me. And it just got to the point where I just said, I can't, I'm tapped out, I'm dry. There's nothing more that I have to give. I'm not creating any new ideas. I'm just in autopilot. I even had a friend take a photo of me. I was just like, wait, I have to document this moment. Take a photo so that I remember. If I act foolish next time and think I can do this again, I need to remind myself. So I left hostel. Great, Fast Track Productions, great paying job, at the top of my game. I think most people are like, you're an idiot for leaving. But I just kept thinking, I need something new and I need something different. But things became very tight. Now, you can be at the top of your game at that time. I can say that I was probably one of the most renowned producers at the time. Had been able to prove my worth by producing a show that produced money, as my boss had asked, and not even just one show, but many shows. And it wasn't just me alone. Of course, it was a whole team of people plus the leadership team. But I had proved my worth, right? And I couldn't get a job. Like, guys looked at me and said, you are too expensive. We cannot hire you. And I remember thinking, what the heck? You're the same people who are hyping me up. Like, man, so if you leave those guys, I'll hire you. I'll hire you in a heartbeat. Do you know how much money you could be making? So I thought, okay. Within 6 months, my savings that I had put up maybe for a year were tapped out. I took on productions that I shouldn't have. You know, you start doing documentaries where they say, go to Arua, go to Kabale, go to this. I'm carrying maybe a 5-man team. Accommodation, travel, everything is on me, because it's those things of after 30 working days or after 90 working days will pay you. And that thing just broke me. And I remember thinking, what the heck? For the first time in my life, I hit rock bottom. I was like, it doesn't matter how brilliant I am. It doesn't matter that I'm probably the most gifted person in this industry. It doesn't matter that I have all these connections. I cannot seem to get any work. But the good thing was, at that time was when I met up with my cousin Benon of Katumba, of South Africa, the pop-operatic group. And I just casually talked to him one day. I think one time he came home to visit my folks. And
you know Ben?
South
That
Africa.
Ben.
That Ben.
Hey.
The one who
He's my good friend.
That guy is a good guy.
Yeah. Ben is great.
Yeah.
So Ben, I think, is also the last born of his family. Very, very quiet. Comes from a loud family, singers, gifted and everything. So whenever he would come home, he was a quiet kid. He wouldn't talk much. He was shy. I was just like, this cousin who doesn't like jazz, Manak. You know, if you can't keep up with us, man, I'm going to leave you behind. So one time he comes home to see my dad. They're very close. He comes home to see him, and he's driving this massive Ranger pickup. Like, I remember looking at it saying, this thing looks like it's out of 24. Like, what the heck? So he comes out of it. I'm like, hold up. This homie was footing just the other day. Who's right? This guy is like, this might come. It's like, He goes in, talks to my dad, everything goes well, then he leaves. So I asked my dad, what's Ben's story? He said, you didn't know this guy has performed for Prince Charles, over he's performed where his group is doing well. Yeah, I was just like, get out. So that's when I sat with my cousin. I was just like, tell me about your story. I spent close to maybe a full week talking to Ben, talking to the rest of his colleagues, George, Charles, sat with them, and I heard everybody's story of how they got to where they were. And I just thought, once again, the goosebumps came, and I said, this story has to be told. So I came up with the idea of Opera in the Dusty City. I wanted to showcase African music talent that had not been presented the way it was typically presented. So I wrote it, but I had no money. Remember, I'm broke. I've already spent all my money on everything else. An opportunity comes knocking. Esther, who used to be the editor at Hostel, says, Solaire, Maisha Film Lab and HBO have put out a call for female directors.
HBO.
Yeah, you can do this thing.
Yeah.
I first looked at the requirements. When I saw must have script ready and character Bible, I said, I'm ready.
Yeah.
I have it. So I say this to say, stay ready so that you don't have to get ready. Right?
Stay ready so that you don't have to
Get ready.
Stay ready.
So that you don't have to get ready.
Yeah. When the opportunity presents itself, yeah.
You just go.
You're like, I have it. I have the song. You know, someone be like, oh, Steve, I have the song. Song list is right. The album's already complete. I managed to complete this. Shania Twain, in an interview on a podcast called The Great Creators by Guy Raz, talked about how during lockdown she wrote 3 studio albums, content worth 3 studio albums, because she said I had time. For the first time, I'm not being put on pressure of deliver by the record label. So because I was ready, I submitted immediately, and I was selected. I just had this gut feeling. I was like, this thing was meant for me. I have to do it. So myself and another lady called Jangara Michelle won. And we went through the process of mentorship. Me who thought, boy, I know I have 10 years under my belt. I did the whole stuff, 400 episodes down. What are you saying? I know my stuff. I went back to being a student, having to be told, that's not how you write the script, write it like this. This is not how you place the cameras, you place them like this. I had to, it got to a point where it was a mantra in my head, bite your tongue.
You had to unlearn.
No, yeah, and I had to bite my tongue. I was like, bite your tongue. Don't say, but for me, it was bite your tongue.
You wanted to. Teacher.
I think you should.
This is how I've always done it. And my mentor who was working with me was Zipi Kumondu, right? I was working with her and a whole bunch of other mentors who walked me through the process of script writing. And you guys, that unlearning, 4 people talking to you, saying how you're thinking, trashing it like this, no, remove this. So the one thing I also had to fight for during that process, I said, okay, I'm here to learn. And then they said, you can only pick one character. Ben sounds like the person whom we should be focusing. Pick on Ben. I said, the homie himself has told me, if it's not him, if it's not all of them, he's not doing it. So my compromise was, the story is the main character. The music is the main character. And that's how I wrote Opera in the Dusty City. Another person who believed in me after that, Phoebe, who was the program director at Maisha, then pushed me forward to go to a film festival. It was in July, Sweden, up north. I'd never been to this place. The African girl was freezing. And my film was the opening film. You guys, I had layered myself. I had my hoodie, I had a jacket, I had gloves, I had everything. The minute my film started to play, everything started coming out. I took off the jacket, I took off the gloves, like I was sweating in the background. And then to have people clap. And then they asked, in Uganda, you mean you have these things? Do you have And I'm looking at them like,
bro.
I was like, the ambassador, I was like, man, are you into adventure? Man, we have the whitewater rafting. We have all the big 5 that you can see. We have a mountain that you can climb that has snow. Like, I went into it really deep. So I had those people who believed in me. Now, during the process, while I was doing Opera in the Dusty City, came Tony, who said, Solaire, there's this opportunity in Mogadishu. Do you want to go? I said, heck yeah, I have like 0 shillings in my account. Yes, please, I don't care. They said, all right. That interview happened so quickly. In 48 hours, I got the job. But they first asked me, do you know where you're coming? Because you're just saying yes. Do you know where you're coming? I said, yeah, I'm aware of where I'm coming. It's Mogadishu. It's in Somalia. It's up north, Horn of Africa. I know where I'm going. So they said, yeah, we're looking for a deputy head of production. We're part of the information support team here. And we support AMISOM and UNSOM specifically, which has to do with more of the political side of things. And I was like, yeah, cool. I went into another situation where it didn't matter how creative you were. This is a different environment. You can't go out and shoot. At least then I couldn't. You can't just go out and shoot. You cannot go and interview people on the streets. You cannot do. There were so many limitations that creativity took a different turn. How do we recycle content that we already have? How do we go about pushing messaging that we need to do in a different manner? And how do you listen to the people of the country, of this specific place about their own culture? Your things over for us, it's Kawa. Women can talk to men anyhow. There's no disrespect there. But then there's a different way in which you have to do it. The dimensions
are different.
Study the culture that you've come into. Don't come in and say, for me, the way I do things is right. You guys, you don't know.
Shock.
So it was a culture thing of, once again, becoming a student. Sit back and observe. How are things done? Work in a very hostile environment, yet you have to put out this programming. So it was a challenge on my creativity. My leadership skills were tested. They were really tested to the point where I was just like, Yamawe. I learned about managing expectations of clients, but at the same time, you also have to manage your team at the same time. And then there are people whom you have to please. You still have to live.
Did you make some money?
Of course, the money was made. But the thing was, and that's the thing, I think some people get deceived by, especially when you're going to work in hostile environments, you earn every single penny that you are working for. It's not that guys are dishing out things of, hey, here's the money. It's for you are going to work. A situation where you're thinking everything in your body is telling you, run, leave, move. You have to stay there and work. The first time I experienced a bomb attack and then had to go back. I remember just going like, are we going back to work? And guys were like, where do you think we are? Like, what's wrong with you? Like, you know how you feel that when they blow up rocks in Muyenga and the place sort of shakes? That would be the sensation. So you hear it, but my mind wasn't connecting. But then afterwards, when you start hearing bullets, you're like, oh, okay, this is real. This is different. Yeah. But then we were not in the front line. That's the thing I have to make very clear. We were quite safe where we were. Yeah. And it was realizing that there are other people, of course, who are sacrificing their life and whose lives are really, really in danger. But it was being aware of that environment and working in it, working in that pressure and being able to deliver the work as your client has. Everything was really time bound. You have to deliver. So I was there for about 2 years. It taught me a lot about leadership, about also relying on myself a lot. There are things that can be stripped away from you that you don't realize. The things that you could commonly lean on. Oh, I can easily pick up the phone and call Benon and ask him for some music tracks. I need Hosea to come and shoot, whatever it might be. Oh, I need Steve to help me with this. It's not there anymore. Now you sort of have to work with what you've got. But I met some really amazing people there. And we did, I think we were there for the country's first elections that were being held there, because that's how huge an event it was. And it was incredible. We had amazing leaders. My goodness, our team leaders were amazing. There were really people who were able to guide us through the madness. And while you're there losing your mind, but I get this thing, and it's like, relax. It's okay.
Did HBO ever take the show?
No, now that was the thing. Kampala? At the time, HBO...
Is that what it was?
Dusty City.
Dusty City.
Yeah, Opera in the Dusty City. At the time, they were going through management change. I think there was a buyover. There were changes that were happening there. So the person who was responsible for the project left. But the film is there. I mean, it's online. You can actually just Google it and find it.
What are you going to do about it?
Well, I don't know. That's a very good question, Steve.
Okay. I
do
know we're running out of time, but what are you doing now? What are you working on now?
Is it on YouTube or?
No, it's not on YouTube, but it should be on the Maisha Film
on
website.
the website.
Yeah.
Oh, we'll check it out.
Okay, so what am I doing now? Well, right now, what I decided to do was, I was challenged by, I've told the story so many times, but you guys will be hearing it for the first time, thank goodness. But I was challenged by a young man when I attended a masterclass that Natasha Sinayobye was holding. And during the Q&A session, one of the guys stood up to say, you guys as the older group are not doing anything to help us who are coming behind you. You're very quick to critique our work when you put it out there. You trash it. You say, you guys weren't using the right angles. The story was off. There was all these things. And when we reach out to you for help, you guys are too busy. You don't have the time. You say, I have other things to do, whatever it might be, you brush us off. So what I've decided to do moving forward, this next decade of my life is really going to be heavily focused on giving back and teaching. So my main purpose is actually to push how to help people tell their story.
Okay.
And everybody needs that skill set. Even as musicians, as people who create content, how important it is to know how to tell your story for the right audience. So whether you're a student who's applying to go to university, because most universities now require 2-minute videos, especially if you're applying abroad, or you're someone who's a YouTuber, TikToker, a video gamer as well.
How are you doing that? Do you have like a masterclass website?
Well, hopefully there's some plans, hopefully.
Okay.
There's some plans to do that, to take it to be more viral. But for now, I do have a channel called The Narrative Strategist, where I do help, just those little tidbits. Yeah, that's on YouTube. Yeah,
okay.
The Narrative Strategist. Okay. Just to help people get started on how they can start telling their story in a very easy to consume sort of manner.
That sounds really exciting. It's been interesting to hear all the stories for
plus your journey. And I love the fact that a lot of people when you get to 40s, 50s, you get to a point where now you just want to teach, encourage, and inspire. I think it's fulfilling. It's been lovely.
That's a Lukanda word. You're still fighting for the same things as the 20-year-olds.
It can't be your story.
Actually, you end up frustrated and fighting.
So,
oh my God.
Anyway, so we're doing our trivia before we end the show.
Okay.
So the rules are no explanations.
Okay.
Yeah, just answer the question.
Okay.
We go?
Yes.
Men or women?
Men.
Pants or a dress?
Pants.
Social media or mass media?
Mass media. Social media.
So which one is it?
I want wanted you to explain it, but you said no
No
explanation.
explaining.
Okay.
And
Mass media.
actually, some of them are tricky. They might get you in trouble.
Okay,
but-
mass media then.
Okay, mass media. The hostel or hot steps?
Hostel.
Korean soaps or Nigerian movies?
Korean, the soaps.
Books or YouTube?
Books.
Richard Twanje or Helen Lukoma?
Helen Lukoma. Richard will understand.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Solaire.
Thank you for having me.
Everybody watching the channel, please subscribe, like, share, follow, comment, and all those other things. Thank you for hanging out with us. And tonight we had the one and only Munyana. I like that name.
Thank you.
Munyana.
Munyana.
Man, it's a shame it means Akayana.
Thank you so much for coming out.
Thank you, guys. Thank you.
Hey.